Okay, everybody probably needs to sign off on the recording. I am Lauren Cohen. I am an international lawyer, cross-border expert, and licensed realtor. And I am here to help you facilitate learning about how to immigrate through real estate, how to invest across borders painlessly and successfully, and potentially get a visa in the process of doing so. Depending on which country you're from, and obviously I have a heavy Canadian contingent because I happen to be from Canada. Depending on which country you're from, that's going to dictate your options in terms of visas. And it's also going to have an impact on your real estate investment options as well, and how easily you can get money out of your home country to the US. Again, it's it's funny because you would think it's super easy, and I bet Michelle, who worked in the banking industry for many years, might have a comment on this, but I've definitely had some challenges recently sending money outside of PayPal to Canada. And you would think that it's easy to send money back and forth between Canada and the US, but it's not as easy as that. I sent a money, Western Union, it came back. I did a MoneyGram, it came back. And I'm like, this cannot be this hard. It's just Canada, US. But the restrictions and the diligence is very high, and we make sure that everything is kosher. And even when it is kosher, they seem to reject it. I'm not sure why. So I don't have the answers to those problems, but I have answers to pretty much all the other challenges of investing across borders, ranging from cross-border tax guidance to cross-border legal advice to setting up your business, creating real estate investment strategies for short and long-term goals, and helping you achieve them, and potentially getting you a visa to live and work in the US if that's what you choose to do. Now, one of the beautiful things that I'll share with you is for a lot of the visas that we specialize in helping people immigrate through real estate, you don't have a requirement of being a resident of the US. And for a lot of people, that's a really big plus because they don't want to necessarily move, or maybe they have children, or maybe they're divorced and they have split custody, or they don't want to uproot their family yet, but they want to get the process in place, and they want to get their visa and have options and not be on lockdown again, which is probably coming, right? And I know the vaccine passport is coming in on the 22nd of September, if that actually goes through. I don't know if that's also the same date, which would be ironic, I think it is, as the election. Somebody can enlighten me about that. But that will be an interesting, no, it's not the same date. Is it before or after, Horacio?
In some provinces, it's already started. In British Columbia, it started on the 13th.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it depends on what province you're in. Quebec, it started like on the 1st, I think.
Yeah, I think Ontario then, I know mostly about Ontario, although I have lots of clients across the country, but my family is in the GTA, so I know about Toronto, and my mom is like, okay, it's the 22nd, okay, and like this is such a polarizing issue for so many, and it's been an amazing experience for me seeing how polarized and how people you wouldn't have thought would be so vehemently for or against anything suddenly are coming out like in droves. And I'm like, I just try to be very apolitical because I have to be as neutral as possible. But once you get to know me, you'll know where my stand is. It's pretty obvious. Election is the 20th. Okay. And I'll be honest with you, I did not get my absentee ballot, and I don't know who's running against Trudeau. So I don't even know, like, I wouldn't really know how to vote, and I wouldn't feel right about voting because I'm not as inclined or as politically aware as I usually am. And I'm ashamed to say that, considering I'm a poli-sci major. So, and I actually met my first husband on our first date was to the Prime Minister's dinner many years ago. So I was very politically active. Now I'm a little bit politically active down here at the congressional level, and a lot of lobbying type of things. But in Canada, I was very active. I was probably in the House of Commons, I don't know, 10 times. And I thought I was going to be the Prime Minister. My first day of law school, they went around, or maybe it was of undergrad, and said, what do you want to do? I said, I'm going to be the Prime Minister of Canada. And here I am in Florida. Kind of hard to run a country when you're not even living there. But anyway, so I think I gave up on that idea soon after starting law school. So today what we're going to do, I'd like to introduce maybe 5 people, and also introduce my team members that are here that can help you answer some questions, not all, but we're going to have, feel free, drop your questions in the chat. If I can't answer them on this webinar, I'll be happy to answer them after. I have some of my clients on here, some of my past clients, some of my future clients for sure. And we're here to try to help. This is not legal advice, and I'll show you my disclosure and disclaimer slide. None of what I'm going to share with you today is legal advice. Don't count on it as such. Every single person has a different story, and that story dictates how we're going to guide you to achieve your goals, because you have a different situation for sure. Like, for example, Horacio, and I know I'm saying your name wrong. Oh, okay. Horacio is from Canada, living in an interesting, what's the name of your town in Mexico?
So I'm currently, well, I was living in Oaxaca. Now I'm in Chiapas, and yeah.
See, it's not one of those big names you know about. Well, Miri is from Mexico. So there you go. Miri does a lot of my email drafting, and she helps us with all kinds of stuff. She's been a godsend. She's amazing. She's here in South Florida. I haven't met her in person, but I surely will. And she's just a real team player, which I really like. And so is Horacio. Horacio has had the pleasure of meeting some of my amazing clients that he's having conversations with and presenting projects to. And the beauty of what we do is that it's not just about immigrating to the US, but it's also about creating opportunities worldwide, building referral networks, and creating strategies so that you can invest wherever you so desire without the stress of figuring out, who do I trust? And that's why I reached out to Horacio, because my clients wanted this place I had never heard of in Mexico. It's not like Cabo or Cancun or something that, you know, those touristy places. And he has been really instrumental. And the beauty is that he's from Canada as they are. So we're all speaking the same language, and it's a wonderful thing. And he's just been a real treat. So thank you for joining us. Huatulco, which is not to be confused with Acapulco, okay? So that's, I'm like, Huatulco, okay, whatever. So, and Miri's like laughing at me. How long have you been living down there, Horacio?
I've been down here. Well, I've lived in 5 different locations over the last 20 years, from Tulum to Playa, San Cristobal, here in Chiapas, and now I've been here since December 29th, so 9 months going on.
Okay, around the time you joined EXP, right?
I was one of the first 10 people to join EXP in Mexico when they launched. So, and just to, you know, if anybody's thinking of buying, we are in 18 countries as well. So Lauren will tell you that, you know, you don't have to go and look for agents all throughout. We can definitely set you up.
It's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. I just referred somebody that's looking for real estate in New Brunswick. Now, I don't have any, I've never even honestly been to New Brunswick. It's a tiny little province, but we have partners there. So they want to invest in Fredericton and Moncton. So I reached out to the New Brunswick broker, and now I'm connecting and everybody's happy. So it's a beautiful thing. Who here would like to say hi? I've got room for just a couple to say hi. Tell us where you're from and what brings you here today. I can call you out or you can volunteer. I know Natalie is not shy. Go ahead. There you go. I knew she'd have her hand up.
I'm Natalie, currently living in Chicago. Nice meeting you, Horacio. My first time in Tulum was during the pandemic. And the reason I joined real estate altogether was because I love Mexico and the real estate there. And I wanted to do real estate there. And when I came back to Chicago after the, the winter, EXP was
for the
presented
winter.
to me,
No,
and
she
I was
said
like,
after
this
the
is
winter.
perfect. Then EXP was presented to me, and I was like, this is perfect because it's worldwide real estate. And I think I started in July actually officially with EXP. I already had 3 transactions, and my team is growing really fast.
Wonderful.
So I'm excited about
congratulations.
that.
And Natalie, you and Horacio and I should have a conversation, because Natalie wants to focus on Mexico a lot. And so we've had a few discussions, and so that'll be great. I'd like to know who Jungle Boy LLC is. Who is that? Bet he's not going to speak up. Can you say hi, Jungle Boy? Who are you? You're like the mystery person. Nope. Okay. What about you, Omar? Do you want to say hello?
Yeah, hello, everybody.
Hi.
Omar Gonzalez. I'm originally from Colombia.
Welcome. And are you a realtor, a real estate investor? What brings you here today?
Want to be a real estate investor. I have taken some steps, trying to get ready for that, but yeah, just a beginner.
Okay, well, welcome. We welcome you with open arms. I see Emily, my friend from Thornhill, Ontario, Canada. She's up there in the chat. Welcome, Emily. And have an easy fast to everybody that celebrates. Please have an easy fast. May you be inscribed in the book of life for health. Having just been through COVID and I broke my foot on the weekend, I've been definitely experiencing some health challenges lately, but anyway, we all have to deal with what we have, and I wish everybody an easy fast. It's going to be an interesting one, and we're, God willing, have a better year ahead. So that's my wish. So I'm just going to introduce Miri, who is an email marketing expert. She is here in South Florida, and she's, like I said, been an amazing treat joining our team, not like as an employee, but really just being a team player and contributing on so many levels, well beyond what her initial scope of work was, and I appreciate her. Sherry is in Tucson, Arizona, and Sherry is on my EXP team, and she and I met, I don't know, it feels like about 20 years ago, but really it was less than 6 months ago, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and we became fast friends. And I should be wearing my locket, but I just took it off because it was banging against me, but it's so beautiful. She got me this locket with all these little trinkets in it, and the trinkets are also meaningful, so thank you. Michelle Birch is joining our team. She has an extensive background in cross-border banking. She used to work with RBC. Some of you may have heard of that small bank, which is literally all over the world. And Michelle is going to be helping with a lot of our project management and oversight and client coordination, and she just has so much to add. I mean, she already added this morning to our first onboarding call, and you know, it's great because I have somebody that I know and trust. I've known her for literally over 14 years, because my dog is 14 and I met her at the dog park. So that's how we know each other, and she's originally from Vancouver. Who else is on the call from our team? Anybody else that I'm missing? Oh, Disney. Disney is actually in the Disney area, believe it or not. Disney is originally from Bolivia, right, Disney?
Yes, from Bolivia.
Okay, and she and her husband are part of our EXP team and helping investors in the Orlando area.
Yeah.
Nicole is in Houston, and she is a part of my I'm the chair of the International Investment Committee for EXP Commercial, and Nicole is an experienced commercial realtor and really brings value to all of us and is so kind and generous with her time. And am I missing anybody? If not, we will formally get started. I don't think I am. I think we're good. So without further ado, I will go ahead and share my screen. Again, questions, stick them in the chat. I'm not good at monitoring the chat while I'm presenting. You can always raise your hand. I'm better at seeing the hand because you go right to the top of the right side of the screen, which is, I only see right now 6 people on my screen. And I don't know if that changes. I see you, Natalie, Horacio, Marcos, Omar, and Disney. That's it. So I would love it if
I'll try to help with any questions in the chat if I can for you, Lauren.
Okay, thanks, Nicole. And anybody, again, if you have a question, you can send it and I'll answer it after, and we'll do our best to keep track of everything because there are going to be questions as we go through this. So as I mentioned earlier, all work product and everything that we're discussing here is not legal advice. It's just general information that is available to all. For specific advice on your situation, I won't be able to answer even through the chat because I'm going to have to look at your circumstances and set up a private consult with you, okay, which we'll discuss at the end. So this slide has become one of my mainstays that people are like, oh, wow, that makes things so easy. So for those of you that have never been exposed to visas before, or you're like, what is this all about? What do you do? What is a visa? Is like, you know, some people say, what do you mean a visa? I use American Express. Like, honestly, I get that a lot because they don't understand. Now, there are 2 kinds of visas. One is an immigrant visa and one is a non-immigrant visa. Can anybody guess what the difference between those 2 might be, other than Michelle? Okay, well, with one, it's a green card, it's residency, it's a path to residency. And I wanted to add something in here for all of you that are doing that work with people investing into Canada or moving to Canada. I am also an immigration lawyer in Canada still, and will never give that up as long as I live. Thank you very much. I pay more to be a non-active Ontario lawyer than to be an active lawyer in the US. That's what happens with Canadian stuff, see? So anyway, these are split into non-immigrant and immigrant, as you can see. And some of these can be transitioned and some of them can't. The most common visas that we work with at eCounsel Global and that people work with in general the L1, the E2, the E1, and the EB1C, and the EB5, okay? So let's go through what those are. The very, 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 very most common of all is the E2. The E2 is a treaty investor visa. They are available to people from countries that have a treaty with the US, a treaty of trade and commerce. That means that investors can go back and forth or invest, like, for example, let's use Mexico. Investors can invest in Mexico, American investors, and Mexican investors can invest in the US. And as a part of their investment, they can access a non-immigrant visa, which is available for up to 5 years and is renewable indefinitely as long as you continue to qualify for the visa. This is a great visa. In my book, Finding Your Silver Lining in the Business Immigration Process, which I will share links for all of that with you guys. It's a great book, and it has some, I say so myself because I paid a lot of money to have the tables done really well. The tables are awesome. They're really, really helpful, and they guide you on what makes sense and what doesn't for these visas. So the E2, I call it in the book, the coveted visa. It's the most popular visa, but not available to everybody. Some people, like those from China, let's say, which is a big, there's huge demand from China to immigrate to the US, but China does not have a treaty. Imagine that. But what Chinese people and others that don't have treaties, most of the BRICS countries, well, none of the BRICS countries do, Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa, China, Venezuela does not, Brazil, I already mentioned Brazil, does not. A lot of the countries that you would not think would not have an agreement don't. So what they do is they might invest in a third-party country like Turkey or Grenada or Cyprus, and they do what's called Citizenship by Investment, CBI. So they invest in those countries, and yes, I do help with that too. So if you're from one of those countries, let's say Brazil, since we have Marcos on here, and Brazil is a very popular place for investors to come from, especially into Florida and Boston and some other areas. So let's say you're from Brazil and you want to invest in the US, but you don't want to invest in a green card, or you don't want a green card maybe because you don't want to become a US taxpayer for certain reasons, you don't want to become a US resident, whatever the case may be. Then what you can do is you can invest in one of these other countries, Cyprus, Turkey, Grenada, and some others, and you buy real estate, and that real estate investment actually gets you access to a citizenship within that country. Not every country has it. Like, for example, Panama has a residency by investment, but not citizenship by investment so fast. These countries are pretty quick and pretty painless. I think in Turkey, it's like $300,000. So if you have the money to invest, it's a great way to go. And then that gives you a springboard to access these visas because those countries have treaties. Portugal doesn't have a treaty. That's another one. Okay. So the E2 is a treaty investor visa based on a substantial investment in a non-marginal business. Now, what does that mean? Well, some people are like, well, I've been told it's 150,000. I've been told it's 100,000. Been told I have to create 10 jobs. 10 jobs is within EB5, just to clarify. I'll get to that in a minute. There is no specific requirement attached to an E2 or an E1 for that matter, although I'll explain what an E1 is in a moment. The requirement is that you invest a substantial amount in a non-marginal business, and that substantiality is determined based on the industry. For example, if it's a service-based business like my business, your investment amount would be a much lower threshold than in real estate. And we'll talk about what the real estate looks like. Or in most other bricks and mortar businesses, because it's going to cost more to run the business, so you have to increase the minimum investment amount. Okay, now for the E2, my guideline, I generally do not work with investors that are investing less than 100,000 because I think it's just too tangible or too marginal, and marginality will defeat you every time. So I like to continue to maintain my stellar track record of success, and I will look. There might be an opportunity if you're investing 80,000, let's say, in a very sophisticated business, and you're developing it, and you're going to be adding to it. Maybe we can make that work. Okay. The E2 is not a direct path to a green card. So if your goal is residency, we're going to have to find another avenue, such as increasing your investment or doing an EB1C, which we'll talk about in a moment. Before I go on, are there any questions about the E2? No? Okay. By the way, some countries have very strange reciprocity term for E2s and E1s. Some have up to 5 years, like Canada, and some have as short as 3 months, like Bolivia. So there you go. It really just depends. Now, the E1 for Bolivia does not have that same limitation. It's up to 5 years. So I know Disney's husband and I have been talking about a client that's interested in possibly pursuing that. So these visas are available for up to 5 years, but then each country has its own reciprocity term with the US. So some are much less than others, like Iraq has an E2, believe it or not, but it's only for 3 months. Poland, I think it's 6 months. Pardon?
Hi, I see in the chat that you have 2 different questions.
Okay, sure.
One question is what type of businesses? And then do you want to just field that and then I'll tell you the next one?
No, I'm gonna, the businesses question we'll talk about in a couple of slides down. It can be any business except something illegal. Like for example, cannabis, no. Why? Even if it's approved in your state that you're investing in, it's not federally approved yet, so you can't invest in cannabis. So as long as it's a legal business, gambling, problematic. However, a casino potentially could work, believe it or not. So I'll talk a little more about that, but generally speaking, the sky is the limit.
Okay, and the next question is does the investment need to be new, or if you're already investing, does it count?
So that's going to all depend on what you're investing in and how you're investing and how you've traced the funds for investment. The investment has to come from your personal funds. The investment can go from personal funds into a business, into the investment, but you can't use business funds. So as long as it's coming from you and we can source the funds to you, and your intention in making those investments was to build up your infrastructure enough to get to the E2, then yes, we can use older investments. And also that could potentially be applicable in real estate as well. If you own some properties and you want to add more, then we can incorporate those together. It doesn't necessarily matter as long as we can trace the funds.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, thank you. The E1. So the E1 is a really interesting visa. It's called the Treaty Trader Visa, and it's based on trade. Now, this would not be really available to a real estate investment profile, because in real estate investment, what are you trading? Unless you, and this could happen, let's say you have a real estate coaching company in Canada, and you're making real estate investments in the US, and you're leasing employees or staff or website services or other graphic artists or social media or whatever from your Canadian company or other Canadian companies. Like, I'll bet you that I could qualify for an E1 through my business because I use so many Canadian service providers. I don't know why, it just kind of happens that way. I guess I know why, but anyway, the point is that you can qualify for an E1 if you can show that your substantial trade is done with companies from your home country, whether you own them or not. So it has to be, if you're trading, let's say you're buying products from China and Canada and Brazil, and they're all equal, that won't work. Canada has to be the largest of the trading partners, okay, in order to qualify. And you have to show receipts. And so if you're running a lot of events, which a lot of my clients do, run events in the US, but they're still running their business in Canada, and they're using goods and services back and forth, that can also qualify for an E1. E1 is just like an E2, up to 5 years, depending on reciprocity. There's no minimum investment because it's based on trade. Generally speaking, for both of these visas, you want between 2 and 5 employees. There's no rule. That's just a guide. And we'll help you with that to make sure it's structured properly. So I call it in my book, the forgotten visa, because not a lot of people actually pursue this E1, and I love it. I've had great success with it, especially for clients that don't want to actually make the move, because it's a great visa to have. You put it in your pocket. You want to stay in Canada, great. You want to be in the US, great. You have no restriction. Now, the interesting thing is for both of these visas, which, as I said, do not have a residency requirement, for example, I have a colleague who is a lawyer from Toronto originally. He does much the same thing as I do, and he spent most of COVID in Spain. He's on an E2 himself. He can do that. Now, if he had a green card, he couldn't do that because he could, as long as he meets the minimum threshold of being in the US for longer than out of the US over the course of 5 years. Okay, now EB-1A is an extraordinary ability visa, which we can talk about. The O1 and the EB-1A are very closely aligned. The EB-1A, you have to satisfy certain criteria. It's not based on investment. It's not based on real estate. It's based on your personal skills and experience. O1s are very popular with athletes and professionals like actors and singers and stuff like that. And EB-1A is popular with professors and people that are, of national interest and providing a service that is much needed in the US. Okay, EB-1C is kind of like an L1, which is an intercompany transfer of a senior executive or manager on steroids. So an L1 can convert into an EB-1C after the first year of your L1 because you have to have at least 1 year of running this multinational business. An E2 can potentially also qualify for you, help you qualify for an EB-1C, as long as you are continuing to maintain an active business in Canada. And that is not a one-man show or one-woman show. You have to have employees. You have to have a business. My guideline is at least 5 to 10 employees in Canada, 5 to 10 employees here, let's say, and common ownership. It doesn't have to be identical, common ownership. So it doesn't have to be exactly the same, and you don't have to be an owner to qualify. In an E2 and an E1, to qualify for either of those, you have to be a 50% owner of the business. And here's the one that everybody talks about, or at least everybody from most countries other than Canada talk about, is the EB-5. EB-5 is a green card that's available through investment and job creation, not your own job, others' jobs, US residents and citizens. So in order to qualify for an EB-5, at this very moment, the threshold investment is 500,000 and $1 million. That will change on September 30th. We don't know what is going to happen. Maybe it won't, but it's going to change soon. It was 901.8 for a couple of years. It went down. Now it's at this lower threshold. There's been a lot of demand. It's going to go back up. So you invest that money, sometimes in your own business, sometimes in another person's business. So it can be very, very passive investment. You don't have an ownership requirement other than like a percentage, and it can even be indirect ownership. And you have to create, and this is the kicker, 10 new full-time jobs. So this morning, for example, we were talking to a client that wants to buy a particular kind of business, but it's an operational business and they already have the employees. So where do you come up with adding these 10? So let's say you're running a restaurant, you're doing breakfast and lunch, you add in dinner, okay? And suddenly you're adding all these employees because you're hiring wait staff and hostesses and all of that. So those are the things that we develop in the strategy with the clients. Now, in all of these, we can use real estate of different sorts. Commercial is always going to be better. EB-5, you think about it, you have to hire 10 staff. So you're not even going to buy a couple of commercial buildings. You have to have a real serious real estate investment business and maybe a coaching business to boot so that you can justify adding those 10 employees. Are there questions? Let's see. Would a US consulting company doing most of its trade with the UK work for an E1 visa? Yes, potentially it definitely could, yes. As long as the person that's doing the application is a British citizen. For an E2, if you're a 50% owner, does the other owner, no, the other owner could be Canadian, they could be Swedish, they could be from anywhere. You just have to have a 50% ownership. That's the requirement. Okay, Carl? I think, Carl, you're from Ireland, so they could be from Ireland, for example. As long as you own 50%, that's the kicker, okay? Any other questions I missed? Sure, of course, Carl. Okay, so I will move this over here. I don't know if you guys are seeing this, but hopefully not. Do E2 or E1 visas lead to green cards? Well, I talked a little about this with the senior executive or manager of a multinational business that qualifies after one of the past 3 years. And you have to, potentially, you could qualify for an EB-1A with extraordinary ability, but you need to meet certain criteria. It's definitely challenging. Okay, so now we're getting into the crux of things. Your critical cross-border professional team consists of basically these 8 components. Banking and currency, well, we can't do much without that. Legal team, due diligence and deal analysis, whether it be your business opportunity or whether it be your your real estate investment opportunity, you always want to do a deal analysis before making the investment and make sure that you're doing the right thing and making it in the right investment. You don't want to just spend your money to get your visa or your green card. Tax, financing, and accounting professionals. I have some amazing cross-border tax people, basically, that handle stuff from any country. Obviously, Canada is my go-to, and I have him on speed, my cross-border tax guy on speed dial, literally we talk every day. So logistics, why? Because you want to understand what you're doing with your business. So we want to make sure that you're getting that in place properly so we can bring in some logistic experts. Financing and capital. Can't do much without financing. And we need creative financing when you're coming from another country. That's not to say that I'm going to help all of you get financing, because sometimes it's not possible. But if it's possible, we're going to find a way. Okay? Now, if you're buying a commercial business from another country, your lack of a credit score is going to be less important than the business's past performance, because they're going to base whether they're willing to fund it on the business's past performance. Real estate professionals, I never recommend, and obviously being a realtor myself, this makes sense, but I never recommend investing in real estate without working with real estate professionals. Finding off-market deals is great, but then you need somebody to negotiate for you. Cross-border experts, well, that's what we are, and you need a lot of cross-border experts on your team. But the key is that I always say this whenever somebody asks me something in one of the Facebook groups, you need to find one key trusted advisor, whether it be a company or a person or a concierge, a one-stop shop. Why? Because there's so many different variables to consider when you're investing across borders, more so than when you're investing in your backyard. And real estate is definitely global these days. So what we try to do at eCounsel is provide that one-stop shop. The corporate side is handled, the due diligence is handled, the cross-border tax is handled, the immigration piece is handled. We create a strategy. I'm not doing it all myself, although I'm doing more than I should, but I have a team of people that I bring in to help you depending on where you're investing, what you're investing in, how much you're investing, and what your short and long-term goals are. Because your structure is going to be very different if you're not planning to move to the US or Canada. Okay? Any questions? No. Okay, good. How do you choose your team members? Well, you don't. You rely on us to choose them for you. We give you a couple of options. We do a vetting program generally, and not always, because sometimes it's just a matter of getting the best person in place. The one thing you don't want to do is spend your time going through the internet, Googling who's the best cross-border tax guy, who's the best at banking and legal and this and that. You want to work with somebody that you trust to oversee it, whether it's myself or anybody else, because you need an accountability partner. And that's really what we provide to our clients. So this is the general way, and I say general, again, not legal advice, the general way that foreign nationals will set up entities in the US. And it's going to be a little different depending on if they're moving here or they're just investing. You usually have a foreign holding company. Now it could just be you and your wife or husband, Joe and Sylvia, rather than an actual holding company. Joe and Sylvia invest in a US holding company, which is usually a limited partnership for Canadians. Could be an LLC, could be a C Corp for others, and it could also be a C Corp for Canadians. LLCs can be subject to double taxation. This is part of why we have a cross-border tax advisor, because I am not advising on tax stuff. I know that I have to stay in my lane. I pay taxes, that's about it, okay? I know enough to get myself in trouble, and I don't want to get myself in trouble. I want you guys to be guided and your clients to be guided by the best. And then you obtain your tax ID. Now, it's interesting. About 2 or 3 months ago, it was taking as long as 6 to 8 weeks to get a tax ID for foreign companies, the foreign owners of US companies. And you know how quickly we can get it in the US with our social security number? About 2 minutes, okay? So that's how long it was taking to fax in the application and wait for the results. As of yesterday, that's down to 3 days. So the IRS is back at work, thank goodness, and processing these faxed applications. Because when you're not from the US, you have to fax in your application. It takes a little longer. Then you have usually for Canadians, we go LP, LLC. For others, we could go C Corp, LLC, Because I like to have that parent company as the, let's say, is the visa applicant, and you can own the real estate through different LLCs, right? So that you diversify liability and diversify the expenses and so on. Any questions? Okay, so this is my favorite slide. And this is basically the slide that's taken me from who's Lauren to, oh, the 10 steps lady. So this slide is kind of your one-stop shop slide. Here's the 10 steps to help you to immigrate through real estate investment. Now, you'll notice on slide 2, so slide 1 is about the suggested minimum investment, okay? You want to generally invest in about $1 million of real estate and at least, let's say, about $250,000 out of pocket to use real estate as your investment vehicle. Why? Because real estate is a tangible asset and your money has to be at risk. So up until recently, there were often denials when you were a real estate investor. The denials were much more common because they don't like you investing in real estate. The doors have opened a little and the rules have relaxed a little, but we still want to make sure that you're not investing marginally, and you can't be a passive real estate investor. So it kind of goes against what we're learning about real estate investing, right? Because we learn real estate investing is so you can make money in your sleep. But here, real estate investing is not so you can make money in your sleep, because you have to run the business to get a visa. So numbers 1 through 8 on this chart are about it's 8 steps to invest across borders. Numbers 9 and 10 are specific to if you also want a visa. So 1 through 8 are applicable to everybody that's investing across borders, no matter if you're coming into the US or investing in Mexico or Belize or Spain or Italy or wherever, okay? So number 2, you can have the balance financed, and I have a great financing option that's right now only available for Canadians and Israelis investing in the US, up to 4 doors, so non-commercial and non-owner occupied. And they're a great partner of mine. They're called Lendai, and they will actually be sponsoring my podcast as of the end of this month, I believe. And they do great work and help fund a lot of international real estate investors. And they're going to add to their scope. They're going into the UK soon, and Australia, and I think Mexico. So that will be good. Just a moment, I have to grab a drink. So we recommend for qualification for a visa, at least 5 doors. Now that doesn't mean 5 single family doors. That means 5 doors of active business. 5 units of active business could be a 5-unit commercial space where you're renting out offices, or maybe you have a co-working spot, or you're building a small restaurant in that space. Those 5 doors need to have a significant return. The ROI needs to be sufficient to show that you're not just replacing your income. So you can't have income of $50,000 and expect to get a visa, $50,000 a year. You have to show that your income supports yourself, your family, and a couple of employees and has a little bit left over. If it's under anything lower than that, you're not going to meet the marginality requirement. So also long-term rentals, problematic. Why? Because it's passive. I like Airbnb. I like, multifamily, commercial. Commercial is great. Mixed use, awesome. I have a video I can share with you guys about a super cool mixed use model that I developed. And there's a lot of opportunities, such as, for example, let's say you want to build a retreat and you have a couple of units for Airbnb or short-term rentals or a mini motel, and you have a retreat center in that same space. It doesn't have to be a huge hotel. It can be a couple $1 million, and you could create a very successful business, okay? Another thing is that a lot of my real estate investors don't want to wait until they have enough real estate to qualify, but they want the real estate to be part of their business. So they might invest in a franchise, or I have a couple of a little more passive investment options for people that don't want to be running the business day to day and want a manager kind of built in. So it's all about working again with the right team. Now, this morning, in this call with my client, I was talking to them about different franchise options. They didn't like franchises. They were like, it doesn't sit well with us. A lot of people franchises have a bad rap. They're really not bad at all. And they're a very good way to come into a new country, because they kind of pave the path for you, and they're there as your strategic partner, guiding you and overseeing everything that you're doing every step of the way. Okay. Third is, and by the way, these 10 steps don't necessarily have to be in this order. Okay, and actually I just realized something. But they all need to be handled at some point, just not necessarily in the order I put them on here. Numbers 9 and 10 are always going to be at the end, because you're not going to get financing after you get the visa unless you want to refinance or something, right? So, but 1 through 8 can be in whatever order we happen to bring them in, depending on who the client is. So 3 is your cross-border tax advisor. I get that my guy on the phone, he's licensed in Canada and the US. He actually just got his own E2 in June. And so he knows the drill very, very well. And he really is an amazing asset for my clients. Number 4, asset protection. Make sure that your estate planning is handled, that you've managed your estate in your home country and how it's impacted by moving to the US. And if you want to move and how you want that to be treated. Is there a tax treaty? How does that all look? Then we set up the structure. Again, we talked about the ideal structure. How does that look for you? Where are you from? Where you're from is going to help be a big indicator for that. Professional consulting. Who else do we need to be on your team? What other professionals are needed? Do we need somebody to help you with, let's say, financials other than the CPA? Maybe you need a financial advisor to help you with some of your investments, or do you want to unload some of your investments so that you can make the investment into this business? How does that all look? Okay. And then number 7, we can't do much without money. And it's often very challenging for foreign nationals to find proper financing because you don't have a credit score here. So when I talk about what's the benefit of getting an E2, it's that you build a credit score. That's one of the big benefits. You get access to a social security number and you start building your own credit. I remember when I came here, and Michelle, who's on the call, has some great options, which she shares with our clients. But when I came here, I don't remember how long it was ago, about a long time, 20 years or so. I remember that it was very challenging for us. And we had to, at the time, I had many US credit cards, and I thought, oh, this is going to be easy. It wasn't. I had an Amex. It still didn't help, but I did set up a secured credit card, and that was my initial way of building credit. So, and now my credit score is probably like, I don't know, 8 or 7, 8, I don't know, whatever it is. It's like as if I've been here my whole life, except good. So then we have a business plan. So this is our core competency at my business. We've been writing business plans for over 15 years. We've probably written about, I don't know, 400 or 500 business plans. Every single one of them has been for a successful investor visa or EB-5 or green card. We have kind of got the market cornered on the business plans. A business plan that you write for this is a completely different business plan than you'd write to raise capital, because you want to show here your ROI is your visa or your green card. So you want to show as many employees as you can. And you want, the numbers are less relevant than is the lack of marginality and making sure that you meet all the requirements. When I say the numbers are less important, it's not about your high upside. It's about making sure that you're not a marginal business, and hiring staff is key. When you're raising money, you want your staff to be as slim as possible, because that's going to increase your likelihood of raising the money, right? So it's kind of a very interesting dichotomy between the two. Then you've got your legal guidance and filing of the petition. And we actually bring in a third-party expert to handle the actual filing of the petition. It's one of our team members, but it's done through one of their specific offices so that everything is independent and you get the best of the best. And number 10, which is really important and way too often overlooked, you get the visa, and now what? So we continue to work with you on an ongoing basis to make sure that your visa remains intact, or that you can move to the next type of visa or a green card as you so choose. I see there's a question. Let's see. What's the best visa if I want to spend more than 6 months? It's always going to be an E2. That's going to be my answer every day, always. I love E2s. I probably am doing, I don't know, 30 of them right now. Okay, can real estate investments qualify for business visas? Yes, provided that it's not a passive business. You cannot do an asset holding company. You can't do buy and flip unless you're doing like 40 units at a time. And then it's like you're actually running a business because there's so much volume. And you can't own a property and hold title and rent it, let's say, for the long term. You have to be involved in directing and managing the business, developing the investment. Otherwise, it won't meet the management test. So what I like to do, as I mentioned, is consider other options as your kind of lead with the real estate investing to follow. I have some great options that are very complementary to real estate investing. And so for those that love real estate investing, there's other solutions that will get you in more quickly and not be dependent on the real estate to qualify. So you can have more passive real estate investments and still get the visa. How can real estate investments qualify? So these are kind of my guidelines. Again, this is not legal advice. It's not hard and fast, but if you're going to be doing the BRRRR method over and over, right? If you're going to be managing multiple rental properties on an ongoing basis, if you're going to manage commercial properties, certainly that's going to be great. Airbnb is good because there's volume and logistics. Mobile homes, storage, self-storage is great. Multifamily properties, again, love them every single day. The more, the merrier. Is there any limitation in age? I'm not sure what you mean. You mean upper age or lower age, Omar? Like, do you mean the minimum age to invest or the maximum? Maximum, there's no maximum. You could be 80 years old and qualify as long as you can show that you're still able to run the business. Okay, here's the real estate investment types. Now, I'll bet everybody on this call can guess which of these would not qualify for a visa. There's only one. Can anybody guess which one it is? Okay, so what's a REIT? It's a real estate investment trust. Is that passive or active? Passive. So it's not going to qualify for a visa unless you're the creator of the REIT and you're raising the money. So you can run a real estate investment trust, but you can't just be an investor in a real estate investment trust or in a syndication or something like that. That won't work. Okay. Again, you could still invest in that, but that's not going to be your path to a visa. So I'll talk really briefly about the 1031, which is available in the US to anybody that's in the US exchanging properties that qualify, but sometimes they're discounted in your home country. Meaning, like, for example, in Canada, you can get the 1031 here in the US, and then what that means is you're basically deferring capital gains. And then you take it back to Canada and they're like, sorry, and they discount it and your capital gains are incurred at that point. So it just depends on where you're showing the money, whether you take the money back to your home country, how you set up the structure and everything. But basically, a 1031, as I mentioned, is a deferral of capital gains, provided that you sell a property A and identify property B into which to invest those funds within 45 days and close within 6 months. It doesn't have to be exact dollar for dollar. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same kind. It has to be similar. Okay, and and generally this is a very popular way for real estate investors to continue to invest and access funds. Okay, and if you'd like, I'm happy to share some of these slides with you. I don't share all my slides, but I'm happy to share some of the slides on specific request. Okay. Now, I'm not going to talk today about EXP because there's a lot of us that are from EXP on here, other than to say that for realtors, especially from countries where EXP exists, joining EXP can be a great path to continuing your real estate journey. And if you're a real estate investor and your spouse wants to buy and sell real estate, and you get your E2 as a real estate investor or as a business owner or whatever the case may be, your spouse can buy and sell real estate. If, on the other hand, you are the principal investor and you get your license, you cannot buy and sell real estate for others. You can only be paid by the company that sponsors you. A little confusing, but it is a door opener for people who figure, like, what is my spouse going to do? Or maybe you have a husband that runs a very successful real estate practice in Toronto, let's say, and they want to come here and they're like, I don't know what else to do. Well, we can find them a path. And the beauty of working with EXP is that we are currently in 18 countries and can make referrals across state and national borders. Actually, with EXP Commercial, you can refer clients anywhere right now in the US without having to have a license in that other country with EXP Commercial. It will soon be in Canada and Mexico. Horacio, I just heard on Friday, they're coming into Mexico within the next 2 months, I believe, or 3 months. And then you can also benefit from revenue share and stock awards and other opportunities to earn income. So I'm very excited about this. It's actually EXP, I think Nicole will remember this because I spoke with Nicole when I first joined EXP way back, seems like forever ago, but my God, it will be like 2 years in November or December. And I spoke to Nicole, and at the time I did not have how to immigrate through real estate. And because I had my license for 14 years and did nothing with it until I joined this company. So I'm the chair of the International Investment Committee for EXP Commercial. And if you want to learn more, I would be more than happy to share it with you. Okay. Slides and go on to, these are all of our value-added services that we offer. And I'll just tell you a couple of client stories, and these are true stories. So I had an investor come to me, and she was hiring like everybody, doing Google searches. She didn't care how much she was spending. She was trying to find the best of the best, but nothing was getting anywhere. To me, hiring all these different professionals to achieve a singular goal is like going to 5 different doctors and getting 5 different medications and not realizing that those medications are counterintuitive to each other and you can have a negative reaction. And it's the same thing. So you need to have this person, again, at the top, overseeing this whole process. It doesn't mean it's always going to be perfect, but it means that you have somebody to ask why, what happened, where'd that go? And they're going to answer to us. And that's the beautiful part of this whole process, is that they are going to answer to us. So at the end of the day, this client ended up switching over and everything went smoothly. She got her, because we had this harmonized team, and she was able to create her real estate investment strategy, and she's very successful. I think right now she's up to 32 properties. Okay. Number 2, prospective investor intimidated by the real estate market in the US and didn't understand how to access capital, find the right properties, or realize a return. So she was afraid, fear held her back. We worked with her and created a harmonized strategy so that she could own multiple properties in multiple states, and she can, as my saying goes, invest, live, work, and play across borders. I'll answer that in a moment, David, okay? So I'm going to skip the call to action. This is an example of my slide, that the tables that I mentioned, which talks about the different visas. It's kind of like the visa avatar slide, which is available for download. And I'll put that all in the chat once I stop talking, which is going to be in about a minute. And then your next steps is I do offer a discounted consultation. I will put this all in the chat as well. I just realized that I didn't. And one of the things that you'll also be able to access is how to invest in real estate across borders for those of you that have not yet access that. So there's a couple of, oops, that's not good. Put that in the chat and it didn't go. So I'm going to close this off today. And I'm going to turn this over to everybody that wants to ask questions. Does anybody have any questions so far, other than the ones that have already been asked? Yes. Hi, Henry.
How are we doing, Lauren?
Can you speak up a little? It's a little hard to hear you.
Can you hear me now? Is that okay?
Oh, you must be in Britain.
I am. I'm just outside of London.
You gave it away.
Just a quick question on the financing. Obviously, I've been accepted by a number of different companies over in Florida there for mortgages on properties on buy-to-let mortgages. So if I'm willing to put 30 to 35% down. So technically, could I buy, say, 6 properties, the five doors that you speak of, and a property for myself before I go there, then set up the equivalent of a British limited company there as a holding company, which would manage them properties. So the properties would be mine, but the limited company would manage them.
Hypothetically, that's not a problem. Are you planning to stay in the UK or move here?
US.
Okay, so if you're moving here, then your company would need to be in the US for it to qualify.
Yes, but what I'm saying is if I buy the 5 properties, I know I pay a slight, it's a higher APR on the mortgages, but I spoke to a mortgage advisor there, they recommended me off the page, and he said, obviously, once you get into the US, you need 2 years trading accounts before you're accepted for any more mortgages. Mm-hmm. Well, being as I'm still here in the UK, I could buy as many properties I want from here, then apply for my E2 visa.
You mean
once-
own the properties before you apply?
Yeah.
Yes,
And then
but don't buy single family homes.
buy apartments, buy condos. No.
No, you cannot buy 5 single units. You're gonna need to buy something where there's a return. Those 5, and don't rely on the 5 as a hard and fast number. You have to create a strategy, okay?
Yes,
Those
but
5 might be 25 for you, depending on how much they're returning each month, because you don't want your investment to be marginal.
No. But if you, it doesn't matter if I was to buy 10, say. What I'm saying is, I can own them personally, set up the equivalent.
Yeah,
of a
you can
limited-
transfer them later, yes. It just
Yeah.
becomes a little harder, but yes, you can transfer them as long as there's no assignment prevention, yes.
And you don't suggest, you say, no, don't buy single family homes like the Airbnb.
If your goal is to get a visa, then buying single family homes is not going to get you there, even 5, because your return is not going to be high enough, and that's a marginal business. And why do you need to be here to run that business? That's not a business that requires you to be here. What we have to
Okay.
do is be able to tell a story about why you need to have boots on the ground. And if you don't need boots on the ground, you aren't getting a visa, period. Just as simple as that. I'm
Yeah,
gonna just
okay.